Ray and Josie had spent 40 years together, raising 2 children, Christine and Leo, and enjoying the fruits of their hard work. Ray, now retired, stayed active by playing golf despite some heart problems. Josie, energetic for her age, focused on maintaining their home. Though their marriage had faced challenges, it had settled into a familiar routine. However, cracks started to form. Josie, once content with their slower lifestyle, began to crave more. Ray believed they had adjusted to his health limitations, but Josie felt otherwise. Her growing dissatisfaction went unnoticed by Ray, creating an emotional distance that opened the door to something unexpected. One morning, Ray's golf game was canceled due to heavy rain. Disappointed, he returned home earlier than usual, not bothering to warn Josie. When he entered the house, he was stunned to see Josie in a pink silk robe, standing with a much younger man. At 59, Josie still had an attractive figure, which clearly hadn't gone unnoticed by this stranger. As Ray walked in, Josie greeted him with a smile and attempted to kiss him, but he pulled away. "Are you out of your mind, Josie? I'd rather not know where your mouth's been, though I can guess," Ray said, disgusted. Realizing what she had nearly done, Josie quickly introduced the young man, Luke, to her husband. Luke was about an inch shorter than Ray, but his fit, athletic build showed he was likely in his 20s or 30s, possibly a former college athlete. His short brown hair and average face didn't stand out, but he confidently placed a hand on Ray's shoulder. Ray held back the urge to react violently. "Nice to meet you. Josie has told me a lot about you. Don't worry, in 25 or 30 years, I'll probably have the same issues you think I have." Ray missed the closeness with Josie, but thought they were doing fine with some adjustments. Luke's smug smile irritated him, but Ray kept his cool. "Luke, get out of my house. If I see you here again, I'll eliminate you. I have a weapon." Luke's grin vanished as he quickly left, mumbling, "I thought you didn't mind." Ray locked the door and stormed to his bedroom, furious that Josie seemed unbothered by what had just happened. She followed him in, now with her robe closed. "That was rude," she remarked. Ray, still in disbelief, snapped, "Rude? I walk in on you with some guy you just slept with and I'm the rude one? You're out of your mind." Josie softened, trying to touch Ray's shoulder, but he pulled away. "I'm sorry, Ray. What we had was nice, but it wasn't enough for me." "You could have told me that. Where did you even find this guy?" "He's a friend of Marjorie's. When she didn't want him, she gave me his information." "He's just using you for easy Zex." "Maybe, but I'm using him too. So what difference does it make?" Josie said calmly. "How long has this been going on?" "A few months. He comes when you're golfing, takes care of me, and leaves before you're back. It doesn't affect you. You get your exercise, I get mine." Ray suddenly realized why Saturdays had become linen-changing days. "I don't care if I'm not here. I'm done with this. I'll give up golf if I have to." "Ray, be smart. You need your golf. This works for both of us." "Maybe for you, Josephine, but not for me." This was the last time. Ray went to his room to shower and change into something casual. Meanwhile, Josie dressed and drove to Christine's house, where her daughter lived with her husband and 2 daughters. By the time Ray finished showering, the house was empty. With no note left, he assumed Josie needed space, which suited him fine since he felt the same. The shower helped Ray calm down. While he understood Josie's needs, he couldn't justify her actions. He knew he wouldn't have done the same if their roles were reversed, and he wasn't willing to overlook her betrayal. The next day was the 4th of July, a holiday the family had always celebrated together. Ray prepped marinated chicken, hamburgers, and hot dogs for the younger kids, eager to spend time with everyone. The barbecue went smoothly, with friends and family gathering. Josie looked radiant, laughing and smiling as if nothing had happened. Though Ray was still hurt by what he'd discovered, he considered forgiving her once, given their long marriage. As guests began to leave, Ray excused himself for a nap, wanting to rest before the evening fireworks. After a couple of hours, he woke feeling refreshed, ready to enjoy the night. He changed and went to the living room where his family sat around the table. Josie was at the far end, with his granddaughters Julia and Allison, Christine and her husband Eric, and his son Leo and wife Rebecca. The atmosphere felt heavy, and Ray realized they were staging an intervention. Christine spoke first. "We need to talk about Mom." Ray glanced at Josie, her face unreadable, and then back at his daughter. "What about Mom?" "She told us about Luke," Christine said. Ray was stunned. "She told you?" "Yes, and about your issues," Christine confirmed. Ray stared at his wife, stunned that she had shared such personal details with their family. "My problems? This doesn't concern any of you." "But Mom's happiness does," Christine responded. Ray turned to Josie. Are you unhappy? I am happy, Ray. Please don't doubt that, Josie replied. Christine interrupted again. But Mom has needs, and well, you can't meet them, isn't that true? So I'm selfish for not accepting this? We're not labeling it that way, Dad. We're just saying you should support Mom taking care of things quietly, since you can't, Christine explained. Ray looked around the room, realizing his family seemed to accept, or at least tolerate, Josie's infidelity. He felt older and more defeated than ever. Do you all agree? Ray asked, searching their faces. They nodded, though some hesitated. He needed clarity. Leo, do you agree with this? Ray asked his son. Yes, it'll help Mom, Leo said. Eric? Ray turned to his son-in-law, expecting no disagreement. I don't see it being a big problem, Eric replied. Rebecca? Ray asked his daughter-in-law, who seemed to shy away. Well, as long as she's discreet, Rebecca said uncertainly. Finally, Ray turned to his granddaughters. They were part of a different generation, and he wasn't sure where they stood on this issue. What about you girls? Grandpa, we shouldn't be involved, Julia, the eldest, said. Come on, you're almost adults. I'm sure you have opinions, Ray pressed. Julia and Allison exchanged glances, then looked at their parents, who urged them to speak. Ray knew what was coming. They had been convinced to side with their grandmother. Well, a lot of our friends are fine with their partners seeing other people. It's just Zex, Julia finally said. It's just Zex. Ray had expected to hear this eventually. Josie had clearly manipulated everyone to get her way and keep her affair going. Realizing there was no point in arguing, Ray looked at Josie, who was watching him eagerly. That's it, Josephine. Majority rules. You'll get what you want. Josie's face lit up with satisfaction. Ray turned to leave, but heard her call his name. For a moment, he hoped she might reconsider, but instead she asked, Can I tell Luke you were joking about eliminating him? Sure, I'm going for a drive. Dad, it's time for the fireworks, Leo reminded him. Go without me. I don't want to go, Ray replied. As he left the house, he heard cheers behind him. Glancing through the window, he saw Josie being hugged by the family, united in their support of her affair. She was already calling Luke to confirm their next meeting, assuring him that Ray had backed down. The family piled into the car, chatting and laughing as they headed to the fireworks, confident Ray would come around. Meanwhile, Ray drove to a quiet hill overlooking the city, a place he often went to think. He was deeply hurt by his family's betrayal, feeling cast aside and useless. Their support of Josie's infidelity made him feel like an outsider, as if he had been discarded, much like the old stories of elders being abandoned when they were no longer seen as useful. All Ray wanted was to sleep, but napping during the day had its downsides. It was after midnight when he finally returned home. He saw that Christine's car was still there, along with Josie's, but everyone else had left. As he approached, Josie opened the front door, likely alerted by the sound of his car alarm. Where have you been? I was so worried, she said. Ray walked past her without responding. Christine sat on the sofa, looking at him curiously. Why are you still here? He asked. Mom was worried when you didn't come back after the fireworks. Everyone else had to leave early, so I stayed. You could have answered your phone, Christine replied. Ray glanced at his phone, remembering he'd turned it off earlier. As you can see, I'm fine. You can go home. Christine was shocked. Her father was usually kind and polite, but this was different. She watched him head to his bedroom and shut the door. She grabbed her purse, kissed her mom goodbye, and left. By the time Josie finished cleaning, Ray was already asleep. The house remained quiet the following week. Josie knew Ray wasn't happy with her affair, but believed he would come to terms with it because he loved her. She was confident he would eventually forget or push it aside. For Ray, though, it felt like his life had crumbled. After decades of being a devoted family man, he was now cast aside by the very people he had prioritized. Josie's decision to involve the family in her affair marked the end of their marriage in his eyes. Their support of her betrayal shattered his sense of belonging in the family. Everything he had built was slipping away. On Saturday, Ray followed his routine and drove to the country club to meet his golf group. These were 8 older men who mixed up their foursomes weekly. Though Ray tried to focus on the game, he knew exactly what was happening at home. His performance wasn't the worst, but it was the worst he'd had in a while. Smiling through the light-hearted jokes felt nearly impossible. Josie watched Ray leave for golf at 7 a.m., hoping to show affection with a kiss, but he remained cold and distant. Though she hated hurting him, she pushed the thought aside. When Luke arrived, she had him parked down the street to avoid attracting attention. After he knocked, she let him in, wearing only a robe. which quickly ended up on the floor as they kissed passionately. Luke lifted her into his arms and carried her to the bedroom, where their encounter lasted about 2 hours. Afterward, Luke showered while Josie made the bed and started laundry. By the time Ray was expected home, everything was in order. When Ray didn't return by 2 o'clock, Josie became slightly concerned. By 3 o'clock, she started calling him, but all calls went to voicemail. By 5 o'clock, with still no word, her worry grew. By 7 o'clock, she called Christine for help. Soon, Christine, her husband Eric, and their daughters were at Josie's house. Eric went to the country club where he learned Ray had left hours earlier. Christine called the police, but they couldn't officially file a missing person report yet. With no way to reach Ray's golfing friends, the family was left to wait anxiously. Around 11 p.m., Julia saw headlights coming up the driveway. Sensing a confrontation, she and her sister went upstairs, while Eric, already asleep, stayed in Leo's old room. Only Josie and Christine remained to face Ray. Ray entered the house, unsurprised to see Josie waiting in the hallway and only mildly surprised to find Christine still there. He had seen her car outside but assumed she might leave them alone. Clearly, she was staying to support her mother. "Where have you been?" Josie snapped. "I was playing golf," Ray replied calmly. "Not afternoon, you weren't there anymore." "True. After golf, I had lunch at the clubhouse. Then I saw the new Dwayne Johnson movie. Not bad, a bit cliched, though." "I don't care about the details, Raymond," Josie shot back. "You asked where I was," Ray muttered. "I want to know why you didn't come home and why you ignored your phone." "My phone didn't ring," Ray said, showing her it was off. "And I didn't come home because I didn't want to be here when your friend was—" Josie, frustrated, said, "Everything was cleaned up long before you finished golf. There was no reason for you to stay out all day." "As I said, I won't be here at the same time as your friend. It's late. I'm going to bed." Ray walked past Josie, briefly meeting Christine's gaze but saying nothing as he went to the bedroom. He expected one of them to follow, but neither did. As he got ready for bed, he overheard voices in the hallway and realized Christine's family was gathered in the house. Great, he thought. By the time Josie came to bed, Ray was already asleep, or pretending to be. She considered waking him to talk, but decided against it. The following weekend passed similarly. Josie neither called nor texted. She had accepted that Ray would be gone all day and used the time to thoroughly clean the house again. However, as the day dragged on, Josie started feeling uneasy being alone. So she called Christine, who agreed to come over and keep her company until Ray got back. Eric and the girls stayed home, but Christine came to support her mother. Ray arrived home around 11 p.m., surprised to see Christine's car parked at the curb again. He wondered if another confrontation was brewing. Walking through the door, he was greeted by Josie's warm smile and a kiss on the cheek, with Christine smiling in the background. "Why don't you change, love? Then you can tell me what you've been up to all day," Josie said softly, almost cheerfully. Ray was a bit confused. Josie seemed more relaxed than usual, her good mood intact. It didn't take him long to assume she'd had her usual meeting with Luke earlier in the day, which had left her in high spirits. Sighing, Ray went to the bedroom to change into his pajamas. When he returned to the living room, Christine was still there, seemingly waiting to speak to him before leaving. She hesitated for a moment and then said, "Dad, I know this is tough for you, but I just want to say how amazing it is that you show your love for Mom by letting her do this. It's really helped her." Ray stared at his daughter, shocked. "Letting her? Is that how you see it now?" He felt the weight of Christine's words sink in. They thought he was allowing it, as if he had given his approval for the affair. He couldn't believe the situation had reached this point. He realized they all believed he had accepted it. Looking at Christine, his voice heavy with resignation, he said, "I'm telling you now, Christine, this is the last conversation we'll have on this topic. The last. Make sure everyone knows." Christine, taken aback by her father's stern tone, nodded in understanding. "Of course, Dad, I get it. It's hard to forget if people keep bringing it up. I'll tell everyone." With that, she kissed him on the cheek and left. A moment later, Josie came in with drinks for both of them. Ray couldn't help but think Josie had planned for Christine to speak to him first. He drank his water in silence, watching Josie move around the room with her usual ease, seemingly unaware of the tension still gnawing at him. This pattern continued for months. Josie enjoyed her relationship with Luke, while Ray found new ways to occupy his time. He still played golf every Saturday morning and watched movies, but he began exploring other activities as well. He tried mini-golf, bowling, and even arcade games. He wasn't very good at them, but he had fun. finding some solace in these new distractions. At home, life settled into a routine, or at least what passed for normal. Luke was never mentioned. Every evening, Ray and Josie had dinner together and pleasant, if ordinary, conversations. Their closeness had shifted, but Josie, convinced her relationship with Luke didn't affect her marriage, continued showing love and affection toward Ray. If she noticed that Ray rarely reciprocated, she didn't mention it, perhaps too comfortable in the situation she had created. Maybe because Ray never brought up Luke, she believed he was more okay with it than he really was. Ray was in for a shock when Thanksgiving arrived. "Mom, Luke's here," Christine called from the front of the house. Ray, sitting in a chair reading the newspaper, froze. If he had been drinking something, he would have spat it out. His hands tightened around the paper as the words echoed in his head. "Oh, good," Josie said. "I wasn't sure he'd make it." Ray felt a surge of anger rise in him. He pressed the lever on the chair, lowering the footrest, and stood up, seething. "What the hell is he doing here?" he demanded, glaring at Josie. "I invited him for Thanksgiving," she replied calmly. "He doesn't have family in town, and he had nowhere to go." "I told you I wouldn't be here at the same time as him. That's why I'm not around on Saturdays." Ray's voice trembled with rage. "And now you invite him to my house for a family holiday?" "This is my home too, Raymond. He's not here for Zex. It's just dinner. I expect you to behave," Josie said coldly, standing firm. Ray couldn't believe what he was hearing. Josie turned and walked to the front door to greet Luke, introducing him to their children, their spouses, and their granddaughters, as though it were the most natural thing in the world. She took Luke's hand and led him into the living room to meet Ray. But when they turned the corner, Ray was no longer there, or at least not in the chair where he had been moments before. Josie looked around, puzzled, before realizing he had left. She headed to the kitchen, hearing the garage door motor start. She arrived just in time to see the door lowering as Ray's car pulled out of the driveway. "Was that Dad who just left?" Christine asked, noticing the taillights disappear. "Yes, it was," Josie responded irritably, heading to her bedroom to gather her thoughts. Luke, looking uneasy, approached Christine. "Should I go? Maybe it'd be better if I left," he asked. "No, Luke, it's fine. This is my dad's problem, not yours. You're always welcome here." Luke hesitated, clearly not wanting to cause more trouble, but when Christine reassured him, he nodded and stayed. The family and Luke bonded over dinner, and despite the underlying tension, the evening went smoothly. Luke engaged with Leo and Eric, chatting about football while the women went shopping. No one noticed when Ray's car passed by later that night. By the time everyone returned from shopping, Leo and Eric had dozed off on the couch, and Ray was still gone. Concerned, Christine woke her husband and kids, sending them home, but she stayed behind to keep her mother company. Leo and Rebecca left, leaving the house quiet as Josie and Christine waited for Ray. Ray came home around midnight, hoping Josie had gone to bed by then, but as soon as he stepped inside, she was there waiting. "Where have you been all day?" she demanded, her voice sharp with frustration. "I went to Denny's for Thanksgiving dinner, then caught a few movies," Ray replied calmly. "We had a great meal right here, and you went to Denny's? Why would you do that?" "It's not about the food, Josephine. It's about the company." Josie's frustration peaked. "I can't believe a 64-year-old man can't be polite to a guest I invited into our home. I would never treat someone you invited like that." "I told you I wouldn't be in this house at the same time as him. That didn't just mean when he's here for Zex. I meant any time, and you knew that. Yet you did it anyway. It was just dinner, Ray. Maybe for you," Ray said, raising his newspaper between them, ending the conversation. After 5 minutes of silence, Christine knelt beside him, her voice soft, almost childlike. "Dad, please try to understand that he means a lot to her. She doesn't love him, but she cares about him. She didn't want him to be alone for the holiday." Ray sighed. "And you don't think there's a problem with Mom's friend becoming part of the family?" "He's not family, Dad. He's just a friend like anyone else." Ray realized the argument was over. "Of course, Christine. I understand." Christine looked relieved. "I hope so, Dad. See you later." She kissed him on the cheek and left. Josie didn't appear again that night. When Ray finally dragged himself to bed, Josie was already asleep. Thanksgiving marked a turning point in some ways. Displays of affection between Ray and Josie almost vanished. They lived more like neighbors than a married couple. Josie believed her decision to have a lover was justified by Ray's condition, viewing his reaction as selfish and driven by pride. Ray, however, saw it as the ultimate betrayal of their decades-long marriage. They only communicated when necessary, and the love that had sustained them for over 40 years had faded. When Josie mentioned needing to do last-minute shopping on Christmas Eve, Ray didn't say a word, although she hadn't needed to do that in years. He knew where she was going. He didn't have to follow her or check her phone. Her expression told him everything. Whether she planned to exchange gifts or something more, he wasn't sure, but he knew she would have a private celebration with Luke on New Year's Eve. Ray kissed his wife at midnight, though without the passion of past years. Josie felt disappointed she couldn't express her feelings to Luke, but she still called him the next day to wish him a happy new year. With Valentine's Day approaching, Ray planned a nice dinner at a fancy seafood restaurant, and Josie looked forward to it, thinking maybe her husband was coming back to her. But Ray had lingering suspicions. Josie's desire to spend holidays with her lover made him suspicious about Valentine's Day. He doubted she'd let the day pass without seeing Luke. So Ray left the office for a bit to watch the house. He parked at the end of the street with a clear view of the front door. Sure enough, Luke parked around the corner and walked to the house. Ray half expected him to walk right in, but instead Luke knocked, and Josie let him in. Ray doubted they were just going to talk. It was their personal Valentine's Day celebration. Apparently, they weren't just casual lovers anymore. That evening's dinner was subdued. Josie approached Ray with hope, thinking they might rekindle their relationship, but the good mood he'd shown over the past few days was gone. Josie was disappointed but tried to make the best of it, wondering what had changed. With no small children around, Easter was just an excuse for a big family dinner. They hid a few large plastic eggs in the yard, usually containing gift cards or something similar. It was just for fun and to get into the holiday spirit. To Ray's relief, Luke wasn't invited. Josie had at least respected that after the Thanksgiving disaster. But Ray knew she met him on days other than Saturday mornings, maybe more often than he realized. She had done it for Valentine's Day, and she could easily do it on other days as well. After the morning festivities ended, Ray announced he was going to lie down. While he was a little tired, it was nothing he couldn't handle. He mainly wanted to avoid being around the family that had betrayed him. He couldn't avoid them completely, but he could limit his time with them. It was a beautiful day, so he opened a window overlooking the backyard, letting a cool breeze in. Unfortunately, he also overheard Josie and Christine's conversation. "So, how's Luke doing?" he heard Christine ask. "Shh, not too loud. I don't want your father to hear." Okay, Christine replied, lowering her voice, but still loud enough for Ray to hear. "I just can't believe my mom has a boyfriend 10 years younger than me." "He's not my boyfriend, Christine. He just..." "Come on, Mom. You sleep with him 2-3 times a week, and you both go out to dinner. You might not want to call him your boyfriend, but that's what he is." Okay, he's my boyfriend. I just want to be considerate of your father's feelings." "I know, Mom. I love Dad too, and I don't want him to get hurt. But let's be honest. He's an old man, and you're still young. He's only 5 years older than me, Christine." "In actual age, yes. But you're active, and he can barely get through the day without a nap. You deserve this. Honestly, I'm a little jealous you're dating again." "Does anyone else know? I mean, other than Saturday mornings, Leo, Eric, Rebecca." "No, I don't involve them." "Does everyone agree with this?" "Leo and Eric think it's fine. They agree that I should meet my needs since Dad can't anymore. Rebecca's the only one who thinks it's wrong, but she doesn't want to hurt Dad, so she won't say anything. What Dad doesn't know won't hurt him." Hearing how deep Josie's betrayal ran, and how Christine fully supported her mother's affair, Ray felt the last bits of love and affection for them leave his heart. Though he had made tentative plans before, out of love for his family and his long marriage to Josie, he had held back. Now, it was time to begin his final plans in earnest. Ray quietly closed the window and lay down. Over the next few months, Ray's relationships with Josie and Christine deteriorated further. Things weren't much better with his sons and son-in-law, but he tried to improve things with Rebecca and his granddaughters, believing they were too young to fully understand the situation. Mother's Day had its own traditions in Ray's family. For them, it meant brunch at an upscale French-themed restaurant. The food and service were excellent, with prices to match. When the kids were younger, Ray used to take the family out to celebrate with Josie. As the kids grew up and started working, they took over the tradition, doing the same for Father's Day. The family had an unusual arrangement. The other parent didn't attend the celebration. Years ago, Ray stopped going to Mother's Day, and Josie stopped attending Father's Day. The kids celebrated with each parent separately, and Ray had always been fine with that until this year. He had a feeling, based on recent events, that something wasn't right. So instead of spending his usual free time reading, Ray dressed and headed to the restaurant. Josie had been gone about 30 minutes, so he knew she'd be there. He didn't plan on participating or even letting anyone know he was there. In fact, he doubted he'd even have to get out of the car. He drove around the parking lot, easily spotting Christine and Eric's car, then Josie's car, followed by Leo and Rebecca's. Ray began to hope he was wrong, but then he saw what he had feared. Tucked away in a corner parking spot, Luke's car. Ray had seen it enough times to recognize the license plate. His wife, or maybe his daughter, had invited her lover to a family event, fully knowing Ray wouldn't be there. Despite all that had happened, and despite Ray's fading love for Josie, this new betrayal filled him with rage. Any plans to temper his actions vanished. Ray returned home, grabbed his golf clubs, and headed to the local course. He went through several buckets of balls, losing count. By the end, he was exhausted. His shots weren't very far or accurate, but he felt better. He drove home ready for a nap. They considered him useless, thinking he couldn't get through a day without rest. He'd let them continue to think that. Josie greeted him when he walked in. He wondered if she had a private celebration planned with Luke, though he no longer cared. It still hurt, but it wasn't worth worrying about anymore. As he walked through the door, he wondered if she'd admit to inviting Luke if given the chance. "How was Mother's Day with your family?" Ray asked, putting slight emphasis on family. "It was wonderful, Ray. Thanks for asking. I had a great time with the kids," Josie replied. She didn't mention Luke. Did this mean the family now considered him part of it? Or had she just decided not to mention him? Ray realized he would never know. He went to the bedroom and took a nap. Soon, the 4th of July came around again. Josie was in a good mood, and Ray knew why. He had stayed by her side for nearly a year now, and Josie undoubtedly thought she had it all figured out. She had a husband who supported her, and a younger man she met with several times a week. In her mind, her life was nearly perfect. Luke had started a new evening job, allowing him to spend a few half-days a week with Josie. Though the pay wasn't much, that wasn't why she was with him. To avoid rubbing it in Ray's face, they mostly stayed out of Josie's bedroom, except for their Saturday matinees. They used Luke's apartment or borrowed a friend's place when necessary, since Luke had roommates. The hardest part for Josie was excluding Luke from family events. She didn't bring it up with Ray again, knowing he wouldn't change his mind, and that was the only thing that really upset her. At first, and even now, she hoped Ray and Luke could at least become acquaintances, if not friends. In her view, they weren't competing. Luke gave her one thing and Ray gave her another, so she spent her days with Luke and evenings and weekends with Ray. She didn't understand why it couldn't work, so reluctantly, she didn't invite Luke to the family barbecue and fireworks outing. The family arrived early to help with meal preparations, and Ray made sure to stay visible and active, ensuring no one could doubt later that he was tired. He carefully watched the crowd, wondering if Josie might sneak Luke in, but he never showed up. As the day wore on, Ray pretended to get more tired. Although some of it was real, much of it was exaggerated. Maybe he overdid it, as Josie seemed to notice and approached him. "Honey, why don't you lie down and relax before the fireworks?" she suggested gently. The hardest part of all this for Ray was knowing Josie still loved and cared about him, which made what he was about to do even tougher. "I'm not going to the fireworks. I just want to enjoy the day with my family and head to bed early." "Ray, are you sure? You missed them last year. But before that, you always loved going," Josie said, genuinely concerned. "Yeah, I'm sure. I guess I'm just getting old, but everyone else will have a great time without me." "Okay, if you're sure." As soon as she left him, Ray watched her weave through the crowd and searching for Christine. He realized Josie was trying to confirm if he would attend the fireworks because she planned to invite Luke. Even though it didn't change anything, the fresh betrayal stung deeply. As the evening progressed, most guests left, leaving only family. Josie, Christine, Leo, and Eric all stopped by to ask Ray again if he wanted to join them for the fireworks, expressing how much they'd miss him. Ray saw through it, realizing his family was slipping away from him. As they prepared to leave, he swallowed his anger and said a few words to each family member. Despite the past year, he cherished the memories of their time together and would miss those moments. He hugged his granddaughters the longest. Ray watched with a heavy heart as the family piled into Christine's minivan, laughing and happy, not even noticing his absence. He tried to push them from his mind and focused on his next steps. The family returned later than usual, giving Josie time alone with Luke. Luke thanked them for including him, especially since he had no close family nearby. Although only Josie spent much time with him, the family had come to accept him as part of their extended circle and appreciated how happy he made Josie. They said their goodbyes at the park since he couldn't come back to the house. When the family got home, they tried to be quiet so as not to disturb Ray. They poured drinks and sat around the dining room table to chat for 30 to 45 minutes before Josie suddenly remembered Ray and asked Leo to check on him. Leo got up and slowly walked into the bedroom. He didn't find Ray asleep, but noticed the bedspread pulled back, revealing the snow-white sheets Josie always insisted on. On the bed, he saw Ray's wedding ring and a flash drive. This wasn't a good sign. "He's not there," Leo said when he returned. "What do you mean he's not there?" Josie asked. "He's gone, Mom. No one's been in the bed, and I found this on the sheets," Leo replied, holding up the ring and flash drive. Not fully believing it, Josie rushed to the bedroom and saw for herself that the bed was unused. When she returned to the living room, Eric was already connecting the flash drive to the laptop. The drive contained only one large file. Josie nodded to Eric and he double-clicked it. The video began playing, and at first they saw a blank wall but heard voices. Moments later, Ray appeared on camera. "Is it recording?" Ray asked someone off-screen. "Yes," a woman's voice replied. Ray turned to the camera. "Good evening, everyone. If I've timed this right, you're watching this a little after 10 p.m., just back from the fireworks show." Everyone reflexively looked at the clock and saw it was nearly 11 p.m. They hadn't bothered to check on Ray when they got home. "At this moment, I'm on a plane flying far beyond the borders of the United States. In case you're wondering, I won't be coming back." "No," Josie cried, breaking into tears. "You betrayed me." The video continued. "Each of you, my wife, who had my love and support for over 40 years, never having to work a day outside of raising our children, threw me aside like trash for a man half my age. And when I dared to object, you turned the whole family against me. I thought 40 years of loyalty, dedication, faithfulness, and support would mean something to you, Josephine. I deserved better. Your desires, and let's be honest, they were wants, not needs, should have taken a back seat to my feelings. Doing this behind my back was bad enough, but forcing the family to side with you was even worse. That day felt like 7 knives stabbed into my heart. Christine, your betrayal hurt just as much as your mother's. Growing up, you were always Daddy's girl. We did everything together. Knowing that you supported your mother in cheating on me, your own father, broke my heart more than anything she did." "I didn't say that," Christine exclaimed. "Never." Ray's voice pressed on in the video. "Leo, Eric, you two must be the biggest idiots in the world. Do you even realize that by supporting this, you gave your wives permission to cheat on you? Leo, I don't think Rebecca would do this, but after what I've heard from Christine, you should be concerned. Eric, if Christine ever claims you're not satisfying her, she'll walk away. She's already told her mother how jealous she is." Eric looked over at Christine, who shook her head as Ray's words echoed through the room. "No, baby, I never said that. I would never do that," Christine protested. Ray's voice didn't waver. "And what about you, Eric? You can't really object to what's happening, can you? You've already said it's normal for Josie. Or is it only normal because it wasn't happening to you? What will happen when it's your turn?" Christine will deny she'd ever do such a thing, but ask her if she thinks it would be wrong for her. Why was it okay for her mother? Her answer will tell you everything. Eric paused the video and looked at his wife. "You said you were jealous of your mom?" "I don't remember exactly what I said. I just meant I was glad she was experiencing a new relationship and rediscovering herself." "So, do you want to rediscover yourself with someone else?" Eric asked. "No, baby. Please don't blow this out of proportion. I love you and don't want to be with anyone else. Unless I can't perform anymore, right? Honey, can we discuss this later? We need to focus on Mom right now." Ray's voice from the video cut through their conversation. "But this isn't over yet." Eric pressed play again and Ray's voice filled the room. "I didn't want to stay in a marriage where my wife cheated on me every week. I certainly wasn't going to stick around when I found out it was happening several times a week. Sorry, Josephine, but you weren't nearly as discreet as you thought. Inviting him to Mother's Day? That was tasteless. I won't tell you where I've gone, but even if you find me, there's nothing you can do about it. Everyone in the room sat in silence, tension thick in the air, as Ray continued. I should also mention the financial situation I left you with. I took most of our money because I intend to live the rest of my life in comfort, as a reward for putting everyone else first for decades. Josephine, I left you the house, which, as you know, is fully paid off and worth several $100,000. My lawyer will help you with the sale if you want. I also left $400,000 in the bank. That's $10,000 for every good year you gave me. Unfortunately, there haven't been any loans of goodwill in the last year. Don't worry about me. After taking the rest of our assets, including the investments, I'm sitting on nearly 8 figures. I'll be just fine, though I doubt any of you really care. The way I've been treated over the past year shows how you all truly feel about me. Everyone exchanged uneasy glances but remained silent. Oh, and if you're worried I'll spend my golden years alone, don't be. I already have a companion, and she's sitting next to me on the plane right now. Let me introduce her. Deborah. A woman's face appeared in the frame, matching the female voice from earlier. Hello, I'm Deborah. I'll be helping Ray spend what could have been your inheritance, she said, waving at the camera. She appeared to be in her mid-50s, an attractive brunette. Ray smiled at the camera before continuing. Deborah and I have been keeping each other company for the past 4 or 5 months, ever since I told her what my wife was doing. We've been spending a lot of time together and discovered how compatible we are. Josephine, you probably remember Deborah. You've met her several times. We worked together for over 30 years, since she was hired in the marketing department. She took early retirement to join me at my new home. We've been close friends all this time, and the best part? Deborah's needs are simple. Just affection, hugs, kisses, and maybe a few other things. I'm looking forward to it. Everyone in the room looked at Josie, gauging her reaction to Ray's revelation. It was clear from her expression that she wasn't taking it well. Eric paused the video. Mom, are you okay? Leo asked. No, Leo, I'm definitely not okay. But let's just finish this, she replied. Eric resumed the video, and Ray's voice grew more somber as he addressed Josie directly. Josephine, I loved you from the day we met. If anyone had told me you could treat me like this, I would have knocked them out before they could finish. I looked forward to spending our final years together with visits from our children and grandchildren and maybe great-grandchildren. I'm so disappointed that your physical desires ruined that for us, for me. I hope it was worth it for you. You should have enough money to live comfortably, especially if you sell the house. If you need more, I'm sure the children who supported your romance will support you financially as well. After all, it was my money that got them through college and into their good jobs, so I had a lot to do with that. The tension in the room thickened as Ray's voice continued. It was a terrible year, and things kept getting worse. I knew about the extra time you spend with him each week. I could have ended this months ago, but I liked the idea of declaring my independence on Independence Day, so I waited. Part of me will always love you, or at least what we had. I wish things were different, but somewhere along the way, you forgot that marriage is about us, not just you and me. I never made decisions that would benefit me and hurt you, unlike what you did with Luke. You probably thought I'd come to terms with it, maybe because I always sacrificed for you. But it doesn't matter now. It's done and can't be undone. For your sake, I hope it was worth it. Goodbye, Josephine. I'll miss you and what we could have had. Ray looked directly at the camera, and the screen went black. Everyone in the room was in tears, some more than others. None of them had expected Josie and Luke's relationship to drive Ray away. In the past, Ray had always conceded to Josie's wishes, and they assumed this time would be no different. Deep down, no one believed Ray had the guts to do anything but accept it. Tired and shaken, they all decided to stay overnight at Josie's house to support her. Rebecca was cleaning the kitchen when the phone rang. She usually only got calls from her husband Leo or the occasional telemarketer. The number was blocked, which struck her as odd, but she decided to answer. Hello, Rebecca answered the phone. Rebecca, it's Ray, came the familiar voice on the other end. "Oh God, Ray, how are you? Where are you?" Rebecca asked, concern clear in her voice. "I'm fine, Rebecca. Really, I am. But I can't tell you where I am right now. How are you?" Ray deflected. "I'm fine, Dad. I have news. I'm pregnant," Rebecca shared. "Congratulations. How far along are you?" Ray asked, the warmth evident. "Just a couple of months. We found out right after you left." "I can't believe it's been almost 3 weeks since you've been gone," Rebecca replied, her voice softening. "Yes, time flies. By the way, thanks for calling me Dad. I thought I'd lost that title," Ray said, gratitude in his tone. "Not with me, you haven't," Rebecca reassured him. "You know, Dad, I owe you an apology. I should have spoken up when everyone confronted you. It was wrong, but I was new to the family and scared," Rebecca admitted, her voice wavering slightly. "I had a feeling, but honestly, it wouldn't have changed anything. Josie and Christine were determined to push through with it." "You're forgiven," Ray said calmly. "Thank you, Dad. That means so much, especially because I want both grandfathers in my baby's life." "Will you be part of it?" Rebecca asked hopefully. "We'll see. I'm not coming back to the States, but maybe we can work something out." "I'd love to see you and the baby," Ray responded. "So, how are things over there?" Rebecca inquired. "In a word, tense," Ray sighed. "Josie isn't herself most of the time, though she still sees Luke several times a week. Christine and Eric are having problems, but they're keeping it under wraps. I think your comment about Christine looking for an excuse to cheat hit a nerve. How are you and Leo?" Rebecca switched topics. "We're fine. Still in the early stages of marriage, so it's fresh. Christine and Eric have been together longer, so maybe that makes them more cautious," Ray said. "The granddaughters are devastated, though," Rebecca added. "That surprises me." "You've always been close with them," Ray responded, surprised. "They miss spending time with you. They don't think casual sex is a big deal, but they understand it's different when you're married," Rebecca explained. "I get it. Christine's influence is clear in their reactions," Ray acknowledged. "Listen, could you gather everyone at your place tonight? I think I'm ready to talk." "I don't think that'll be a problem, Dad," Rebecca agreed. "Then we'll talk later," Ray concluded. That evening, the entire family gathered in Leo and Rebecca's living room. Rebecca had made it clear that Luke wasn't invited. Though she prepared sandwiches, the tension in the air left everyone too preoccupied to eat. At exactly 8 o'clock, the phone rang. Rebecca placed it on speaker. "Hi, Dad. Everyone's here," Rebecca announced. "Thanks, honey. Just so you all know, Deborah is with me. Let's try to have a polite conversation, not an argument." "Does everyone agree?" Ray asked. The family members murmured their agreement. "Good. I wanted to wait until some time had passed before we talked. I contacted Rebecca first because I sensed she wasn't as comfortable with all of this as the rest of you." "Leo, congratulations on the baby," Ray started. "Thanks, Dad. I'll try to live up to the standards of fatherhood you set." "And I mean that," Leo replied. "As they say, the best thing you can do for your children is to love their mother. Keep that in mind, and you'll do great," Ray advised. Ray then addressed his granddaughters. "Allison? Julia?" "Yes, Grandpa," they responded together. "Girls, I was disappointed you sided with your grandmother, but your aunts Rebecca and Deborah convinced me that you may have been pressured and didn't fully understand. You lacked the life experience to comprehend the complexities of adulthood and a 40-year marriage. I still have your emails and phone numbers, so we can talk more about this later if that's okay." "Of course, Grandpa. We just miss you," Allison replied. "I miss you too. Why don't you both find something to do while the adults talk?" Ray suggested. The girls hugged their grandmother and said goodbye before leaving the room. "So," Ray continued, "does anyone have something they're dying to say?" "Ray, honey, please," Josie began, unsurprising to everyone. "Please come back. We can work through this. If you had told me you were really leaving, we could have fixed it." "Why did it have to go this far, Josephine?" "I told you I wouldn't accept this, but you turned to the family for support. You started inviting him to family events and seeing him multiple times a week. You replaced me with him when we were barely even roommates. I finally had enough. But you didn't say anything else. I thought you had accepted it. Thought it was just something I did," Josie said, her voice shaking. Ray looked at her, his tone firm. "It drove a wedge into our marriage, and there was no way out but this. From the moment you chose him over me, Our marriage was doomed. I'm so sorry, Ray. Can't we? Josie began, her voice filled with desperation. No, Josephine, we can't, Ray interrupted. Even if I wanted to, and I don't, I've made a commitment to Deborah and I intend to keep it. What about your commitment to me? You made that one first, Josie pressed, tears welling up. Yes, I did. And I would still be honoring it if you hadn't broken yours. But when you did, it freed me from mine and gave me the chance to make a new one, which I have, Ray responded. The room fell into a heavy silence, the only sound being Josie's soft sobs. Josie, Ray said gently, I'm sorry, but there's no point in continuing this. Whether you meant to or not, you pushed me away. There's no turning back. Without another word, Josie stood and quietly left the room, heading towards Christine and Eric's bedroom. Christine, watching her mother leave, spoke up, her voice cold. Very nice, Daddy. Did you call just to hurt Mom and make her cry? All because your ego couldn't handle another man making her feel better? Ray, unfazed, responded, Is that really how you see it, Christine? Eric, how's your ego holding up? Is it ready to accept another man making your wife feel better than you? Christine glanced at Eric, who remained silent. Throughout their marriage, Christine had always been the dominant partner, and Eric, like many husbands, had gone along with it. But recently there had been a shift, and Christine realized that their marriage was now in serious trouble. You can't support another woman's right to cheat without feeling at least a little guilt. Ray's words echoed in her mind. Her tone softened. No, Ray, that's not fair. You were right. I hadn't thought about it that way, she admitted quietly. For what it's worth, Ray, after all of this, Christine and I have been having serious issues, Eric finally spoke, breaking his silence. I understand, Ray replied, but let me tell you this. Fight for your marriage before it's too late. You two love each other, but you've started taking that for granted. I noticed it before all of this happened. Let this be a wake-up call, not the end. Remember, you're a team. Christine lowered her head. I never meant for this to happen, Dad, she whispered, her voice heavy with guilt. I know, but Christine, Josie didn't do this alone, Ray said, his tone calm but firm. The room went quiet again, the weight of Ray's words hanging in the air. After a few moments, Christine spoke once more, her voice small, almost like a child's. Dad, can I talk to you alone? If everyone else doesn't mind, I don't either, Ray replied. Christine glanced around the room, and seeing no objections, she took the phone and retreated to a spare room, closing the door behind her. Dad, I'm scared, Christine confessed. Eric is talking about divorce, or at least counseling. What should I do? You can fix this, Christine. Here's what you'll do. Now that your daughters are mostly grown, put the time you used to spend raising them back into your marriage. This isn't free time, like your mother thought. You're his partner, not his boss, Ray advised. Christine's voice trembled. He's really angry, Dad. Ever since he started seeing this as me giving myself permission to cheat, he's been furious. He's constantly snapping at me, and I know he wonders if I've already done something. Ray's voice remained steady. Did you? No, Daddy, no, Christine answered quickly. But I don't know how to convince him. All you can do is make sure there's no reason for suspicion moving forward. If you stay honest, questions about the past will eventually fade, Ray assured her. Christine hesitated. Dad, I'm really sorry. Isn't there any way to fix things between you and Mom? It's too late for us, honey, but it's not too late for you, Ray said softly. Christine's voice cracked as she whispered, Daddy, I love you. I love you too, Ray replied.